I'm going to show you how to make this chocolate cake, which is surprisingly really simple. It only takes one bowl and less than 20 minutes to throw together. In my bowl, I'm going to combine 1.5 cups of light brown sugar with 1 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour, 3/4 cups of cocoa. You can use special dark cocoa if you like a richer, chocolatier taste. And 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. This might seem like a lot of salt to throw into a cake, but because of all of that sugar, it really helps balance and round out the flavor, and surprisingly makes it taste just a little more rich. Additionally, we're gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. In addition to providing lift to the cake, the baking soda also lends another layer of saltiness that is essential for something as rich and as sweet as a chocolate cake. Another ingredient here is optional in the recipe, but I highly recommend it. It's 2 teaspoons of instant espresso powder. It's not gonna taste like a coffee cake at all. The coffee instead enhances the flavor of chocolate and just makes it easier for your tongue to detect the flavor. So these are all of our dry ingredients, and I'm just gonna whisk them together until they're homogeneous. Unlike most cakes that rely on some form of dairy or eggs for the liquid base of the cake batter, this cake actually just uses hot water, which you will be surprised makes a really tender cake that, when paired with the oil that we're gonna throw into the batter as well, also makes it really tender and moist. So here I have 1 3/4 cups of water, which I'm gonna throw into the batter. You want the water to have just finished boiling because the heat from the water actually facilitates the chemical reaction between the baking soda and our next important ingredient, apple cider vinegar. So this is 1.5 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. Like the espresso powder, it's not something you're going to taste in the cake, but it reacts with the baking soda and it helps make the interior of the cake extra tender, which for a chocolate cake is just what you're looking for. Lastly, I have 6 tablespoons of vegetable oil. You can use melted coconut oil. You can even use olive oil if you like the flavor of olive oil with chocolate. As you combine these ingredients and whisk them together, all of the aroma of the coffee and the chocolate will kind of just hit you in the face. And it is maybe one of my favorite moments in making a cake. Once your batter is smooth and it's come together, you'll notice that it's probably a little more liquid than what you're used to for other cake batters, and that's okay. It will set just right in the oven. Here I have an 8-inch cake pan. You can use a 9-inch cake pan. The important thing is that you want it to be a little bit taller because we're just baking one single layer. This cake is so moist and so tender, it doesn't even need to be cut in half and frosted in the middle. So you want one that's a little bit taller just to prevent the possibility of it running over the edge. Right, just using a spatula to clean off the edges. Of course, you can save a little batter for yourself if you want. I have a 350-degree oven preheated, and I'm gonna throw this in for about 50 to 55 minutes until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. While my cake's in the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and throw together my frosting, which is also really simple. It does require a stand mixer or a hand mixer, but I promise it's only 5 ingredients. I've microwaved for 30 seconds, a 1/2 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips and a 1/4 cup of butter. And once these have melted and you've stirred them together, it makes this really silky and smooth ganache that'll form the base of our frosting. So I'm just gonna put this in the stand mixer. To our ganache, I'm going to add 4 ounces of room temperature cream cheese. By ensuring that it's room temperature, you're gonna have a smooth frosting really quick. 1/3 cup of powdered sugar. Just like the cake batter, we're going to add another coffee element just to enhance the chocolatiness. So this is 1 tablespoon of strongly brewed coffee. I'm gonna lock my mixer in place and I'm gonna incorporate it on low at first, just to make sure that the powdered sugar doesn't come flying out of the bowl. And then once everything's roughly combined, I'm gonna increase the speed to medium-high until it's silky, satiny, and until it lightens in color, which will take about 2 to 3 minutes. That's just air getting whipped into the mixture and making for a frosting that feels really light on the tongue and that dissolves quickly. The addition of cream cheese to a frosting like this adds a really nice acidic component to an otherwise sweet and rich frosting, and also a sweet and rich cake. And so, believe it or not, the cream cheese helps to balance and round out the flavor of the entire cake slice, which is one of the reasons why it's essential and one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite. I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl before I keep whipping the frosting, just to make sure that none of the chocolate is clinging to the side of the bowl and unincorporated. And you can probably already see that the color of the frosting has lightened a little bit, and it'll just get a little bit lighter as well as we continue to whip air into the frosting. You can see that the frosting is kind of pillowy and shiny, And now I'm just gonna transfer it into a bowl and set it aside for when my cake is ready to frost. Now that my cake is out of the oven, I'm gonna let it cool completely in the pan before we take it out and frost it. Now that my cake is cooled completely, I'm just gonna take a butter knife and I'm gonna run it around the edge of the cake. And because I put a circle of parchment paper at the bottom of the cake pan, it should slip out really easily. Like so. You can remove the parchment and then transfer it to a serving platter. Because this cake is really easy and we're not trying to fuss with anything complicated, I'm just gonna take my frosting and spread it over the top of the cake. And I'm gonna use a spoon rather than a spatula or anything, just to make some nice decorative swooshes. And my cake will be ready to eat. And since the cake layer is nice and thick, having a thick layer of frosting is definitely preferable. And to finish it off, now that I've added the frosting, I want to take some flake salt and just sprinkle it across the surface. This does a couple things. It adds really beautiful visual appeal because those crystals catch the light in a beautiful way. But it also adds a contrast in texture by giving the crunchy bites of salts and flavor, contrasting the sweetness and the richness of both the cake and the frosting. Here's the finished product, and honestly, it's beautiful, and I can't wait to try it myself. I hope these tips and tricks have been easy and that you have the confidence to make one for yourself. Since it's just one layer, it's super easy to slice. And as you can see, the cake actually isn't really sticking to the knife. And as you lift it out, you can see it slices beautifully. You can notice that the crumb is nice and even and it's ready to go. Now for the moment I've been waiting for, I'm gonna take a bite. It's honestly perfect. It's so moist and rich, and the flavor of chocolate is just even across my mouth. It's truly incredible. If you have any questions or comments, comment them below, and we'll try to get to them in future videos. And if you've liked what you've seen, subscribe to the Southern Living YouTube channel so you don't miss any tips or tricks from the test kitchen in the future. Thanks so much. Bye.